been provided to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, and that notice was published in the Jersey Journal, city website, copies provided in the record, the North Star Legend, also placed on a bulletin board in the lobby of City Hall. Any objections, if any, shall be made to the city clerk.
Please rise to salute the flag. Mr. Farina, please call the roll.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
DeFusco?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Present.
Mr. Fisher?
Here.
Giantino?
Here.
Mr. Quintero?
Present.
Mr. Ramos?
Present.
Mr. Russo?
Present.
President Jabour?
Here. We're going to suspend the agenda tonight to welcome one of the recipients of a proclamation this evening, Jim Perry, who's here with his family. Should we go up? Do you want to come up?
Come on up, folks. Hello, Tiffany. How are you?
Okay.
All right. Hey, Ruben. How you doing? Joe, how are you?
Okay, so we'll do it this way. Okay. I'll do it from this side. So the reason for this recognition today is recently, last week actually, and actually Councilman Cohen was also there, we had the opportunity to celebrate Jim as Hoboken's Senior Citizen of the Year as part of a larger celebration organized by Hudson County. So as an extension of that, we wanted to provide to you on behalf of the city, but on behalf of the mayor and the council, a proclamation codifying that recognition, not just as a Senior of the Year, because really you do so many things as a servant in our community. You've served on multiple boards, and you're just an incredibly committed volunteer in our community in so many ways, and just a lovely person. And so we wanted to codify that and provide you with this proclamation to continue the celebration of all of your accomplishments in this community.
Well, thank you so much.
Words you want to say to the microphone?
I do.
Get to the microphone so everyone
I
can
can
hear.
hold this for you if it's easy.
It's hard following those kids because they were really good.
They were good.
But I do want to just say something briefly. Thank you, Mayor Bala, and thank you, Hoboken City Council. Really, I am honored. Being Hoboken's nominee for Hudson County Senior of the Year and hearing of the contributions and accomplishments of the other nominees from around the county, I was indeed honored and privileged to represent this community and be among that group. There is a Jesuit value called magis, which is derived from the Latin meaning striving for the better and discerning the greater good. Thankfully, the transformation and evolution of our city over the years appears to have been mindful of this value and brought our community closer and improved our quality of life, especially for us seniors. I can't imagine a better place for my family to be or for me and Rose to grow older in than here. Please keep up the good work. And thank you again.
Everyone in your family? Let's get everybody.
Oh, sure.
To the whole family.
The whole family. Yeah.
I made a lot of phone calls.
Sean, you need to go in the back.
Jerry figures it out. He's good at this. Okay, ready? Look at me. I want to show everyone. Great. One. Great, thank you. Thank you.
Congrats again, Rose. See you, Mark.
Thank you, Jim. You're so lovely. Okay. Chance, give them a moment.
So darn cute. That's such a nice family.
Okay. They had a nice trip, it sounds like. In between the luncheon to today, they were in New Orleans. Yeah, they just got back Monday.
Rose,
Nice.
too. She's a huge walker.
Ready?
Yep.
Hearing on an ordinance B557 is being carried to the June 7th
Yep.
council meeting.
Correct.
Hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 190-11 entitled Loading Zones to add a loading zone to Madison Street at Northwest Resiliency Park.
Okay. Are there any members of the public signed up to speak on this?
No.
Okay, motion to close public portion? Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Council members, Councilman Cohen, did you want to?
Thank you, Council President. Yes, so this was an item that was originally up for second reading at our last meeting. The council may remember that this has to do with the drop-off area by the Northwest Resiliency Park. The ordinance had been set to have hours of drop-off end at 11 p.m. We changed it on first reading to 10 p.m. I noticed on the Acela that it had been posted the old version, and Jerry, the clerk, tells me that that has since been fixed. So if you go into the current Acela, it will reflect the actual correct ordinance. The idea here is that people in the neighborhood should be able to park their cars overnight starting at 10 p.m. And the field is going to be closed at 10 p.m. So there's no need for there to be drop-off for athletic purposes until 11 p.m. Gives an extra hour to the neighborhood for overnight parking and aligns with the timing for the park. Originally, there was a possibility of the park being open until 11, but because of noise complaints from people who live in the buildings adjacent to the Northwest Resiliency Park, although we're happy the field is there, they're also happy that the lights are turned off at 10 p.m. so that it gets quieter soon. Thank you, Council President.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle? Aye. Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes.
Hearing on an ordinance of the City of Hoboken, County of Hudson, State of New Jersey, rescinding portions of an ordinance B-439 that authorizes the city to acquire real property known as Block 130, lots 1 through 32 on the official tax map of the city.
Are there any members of the public signed up to speak on this? Seeing none, motion to close public portion. All in favor?
Aye.
Council members?
Yep. This is just to rescind the eminent domain that we've been discussing with regards to the Poggi site, correct?
Correct.
So I just want the public to be aware of that we have rescinded that process. Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Farina?
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes.
Hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 190-6.1 to designate restricted parking for Health Department official business vehicles at the multi-service center.
Are there any members of the public signed up to speak on this?
No.
Seeing none, motion to close public portion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Council members? Seeing none, Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes.
Hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 179 Special Improvement District of the Hoboken City Code.
Are there any members of the public signed up to speak on this?
No.
Seeing none, motion to close public portion. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Council members? Seeing none, Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco.
Yes.
Mr. Doyle.
Aye.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Giantino.
Yes.
Mr. Quintero.
Aye.
Mr. Ramos.
Aye.
Mr. Russo.
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes.
Hearing on an ordinance amending the North End redevelopment plan for the North End rehabilitation area.
Are there any members of the public signed up to speak on this?
No.
Seeing none, motion to close public portion.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council members? Mr. Freena, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen.
Aye.
Mr. Fusco.
Yes.
Mr. Doyle.
Aye.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Giantino.
Yes.
Mr. Quintero.
Aye.
Mr. Ramos.
Aye.
Mr. Russo.
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes. Public portion on agenda items. Liz Orteco.
Liz Orteco on CD2.
Hi, Liz Ortecho. I want to talk about the 1500 Clinton project. I had the opportunity to watch the community meeting regarding that project, and I've had a lot of conversations with some of the neighbors in that area regarding the development of that property. And some of the things that they're most concerned about are infrastructure related, sewage, water, main pipes, like all of the stuff that has to support the build out of that area, traffic, roads, all of that. In addition, that particular project is 382 units, 12 of which are going to be 3 bedrooms. And I think what's happened, like I've been talking to a lot of people who are finding that the housing stock for 3 bedrooms and growing families, not enough. And this project is not going to have that. And I'm hoping that as that area gets redeveloped, we're thinking about things holistically and how the housing stock and all of the things we want to add and supplement and complement into our community are thought through, because that's the last piece really, or big, huge piece of what we have left in this town to redevelop. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
She gave
Yep. Anyone else, Jimmy?
Marion Draker.
Mary Andraka, 159 9th Street. I have E9 and then F1 on there. E9, I just wanted to know this resolution awarding a professional services contract to Boswell Engineering in the amount of $23,500 for LSRP services at Elysian Park. What is that? You, Mr. Doyle, your name's on there.
Yep. When you're done, I'll.
Yep.
Oh,
Any
okay.
other questions?
Yeah, I asked him what that was. And then the other one, F1, which has Russo's name on it. The resolution, wait a minute. Yes. Inserting a special item of revenue into the 2023 municipal budget to include $200,000, or is it 200 million? 200,000. Yeah, received from Iron State Holdings LLC for expenses associated with vacating the DPW garage at 250 Observer Highway. I actually, the question I have here is, I kept up with this for a while and I lost track. Have they acquired a site for that garage firmly yet? Okay, so that's your question, and your question is what the money is for in Elysian Park. Are you going to answer it when I sit down? Thank you.
Will. Thank you, Mary.
Yes, Mary. We acquired a piece of property for the DPW garage. It's at the Academy site
In Northwest.
in the northwest. Yep.
1500 Jefferson. Mm-hmm. You sit down. We were the recipients of Green Acre funding for work in that park many years ago, about a decade ago. And at the conclusion of the Green Acre funding, we're supposed to provide a report back to the state to confirm that we spent the Green Acre funding in the manner that is prescribed. And we had not done that report. So this is to fund the closing out of that Green Acre, spending from about a decade ago.
Patricia Waiters.
Pat, how you feeling first?
Thanks, Mike. I feel good. Great. And I want to give you all a shout out. I know that's not on the agenda, but I'll give you a shout out on the public portion. And plus, Manny want me to put them on, and I'm trying, but it's not going through. So don't laugh, Jim. So I'm keep telling him. So I want this recorded so he could see, because he's beeping me, driving me crazy with a whole bunch of resolution. Mike, you know I just went through what I went through. And I'm just putting it on the record so he won't think he's being ignored. He's trying to call in. He want to be included on a few items, but I can't really do it tonight. I'm just wanting to ask about CD3 and CD4 with the rent control and the affordable housing attorney. I asked y'all last meeting, I don't know if I got an answer, but do any of these attorneys really help us with respect to housing, affordable housing, and like rent, not rent control, but just affordable housing issues with respect to, the waiting list and all of that in the process? Do any of these lawyers do that? I mean, is there a lawyer? What's the other guy, the able guy? Don't they supposed to help
Andrew
us with
Sobel.
this?
Council President.
Vanessa Falco, who is in charge? Because this is like getting ridiculous now. Even with the HHA, there's a process they're supposed to adhere to, and they're not doing it, and it's not fair. It's really not. I mean, for us having $4,000 vouchers, living like animals, I know we all impacted with the rats and all of that. We make the best of a bad situation, but that's a lot of taxpayer monies. Yes, I do depend on the state, but I also feel bad on the other hand to abuse the taxpayers' money, because I shouldn't have to live like that. So please, could y'all let me know who's in charge so I could go see them tomorrow, ASAP?
Yeah, Pat, it's Andrew Sobel. That's
Please,
who you
again,
want
I'm
to
gonna try to deal with him again. I've dealt with him in the past. As long as you pad people's pocket and they not doing nothing, they're gonna look the other way. I'll be there tomorrow. Tell him, please.
Not a problem.
Thank you, guys.
That's it.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak on agenda items who haven't been recognized? Seeing none, motion to close public portion?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
For purposes of how the agenda is organized, I need to pull Resolution F1 to vote on that separately before we can proceed with consent. So F1 was discussed earlier. It's the resolution regarding the Iron State settlement. So we're going to remove that from consent. Do council members have any questions or comments on that particular item?
What are we, you're removing it from consent?
I need to vote on this item first before the others because of process around how those funds matriculate, is my understanding.
What is that
Hand me the piece of paper.
There are two items
There are
under
two items that are
environmental
related to
services
it,
that are funded.
E7 and E8, that are related and funded through that. So we have to vote on F1 before we can vote on E7 and E8. So I'm going to pull that to be separate before consent. And I will leave E7 and E8 on the consent agenda unless otherwise somebody wants to pull those. But Mr. Freena, if you could call the, sorry.
On F1.
Wait, all right, you're
Just on
pulling
F1,
You're pulling
yes.
it, and we're
I'm just
voting on
pulling it so we
Got
can vote on that item first.
All right.
Yes.
Mr.
On F1.
Cohen?
Aye.
Busco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle? Aye. Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Piantino?
No.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes. And now going back, council members, any items that you wish to pull from consent agenda? Sure.
Yeah. CD2. F1.
Well, we
already
Oh,
just
sorry.
voted on
No,
F1.
you're right. Sorry. I just circled it because you were pulling
Got it, sorry.
T1.
T1?
And I guess so I'm just clear, if you don't mind me to follow up. The 200,000 from the Iron State settlement is being used for E7 and E8, right?
That is my understanding. If Director Freeman, I don't know if you want to add any additional detail to that. Yep.
So why don't we pull E7 and E8 just as a separate vote?
Okay.
Put together. Is that it? No one else?
CD6.
Oh, and,
CD6.
and A2, sorry.
2. Anyone else? Okay, so the consent agenda, except for CD2, CD6, E2, E7, E8, F1 has already been voted on, and T1.
Councilwoman, did
Am I
you say
missing?
A2 or E2?
I said A2.
A2.
A2, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So not E2,
Not E2,
Thank you.
A2.
That's two, Brute.
A2. Okay,
Call it.
okay. Mr. Farina on consent.
Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Fusco,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Fisher,
Yes on everything except abstain on CC1 and CC2.
Gene Tino,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mr. Russo,
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes. A2, Councilman Fisher.
Yeah, so I have one question. The host agreement, I'm foggy on this, so I apologize. It's our ordinance that calls for the 2% of sales. And this host agreement doesn't have to mention the 2%. That just exists through our ordinance. This is an extra 1%.
Correct, on top of the two.
Right, awesome. So just to say it out loud for people, we're voting on a community host agreement and the resolution to support the dispensary called Terrapin, which is down at River and Newark. This is a dispensary that already has approval at the state level for its medicinal license. It still has to get at the state level its recreational license, but this is a facility that is already fully built out. If you go by it, they had the windows not tinted, or whatever they are, for a while, and they've built out like a beautiful inside. I get questions all the time because I'm the loudest person about these dispensaries, when's the first one that's going to open? And I would guess that this will be the first one to open. I don't know, from here, they still have to get final approval for recreational at the state level, and the state is very, very backed up, but they've been giving approvals for the dispensaries that already have medicinal licenses. So hopefully it will happen sooner than later. And like I said, my guess is this will be the first one opening. I went to all the meetings, the planning board meetings. The owner of this is a local business owner, and I'm just really hopeful that this is going to bring all the positive revenues and they're going to be, a good partner to Hoboken. So I support it. Oh, and wait, just one quickly. What's in the host agreement? Sorry, the whole reason why I pulled it. So our ordinance, the city will get 2% of all sales. This host agreement actually has an additional 1% as like an impact fee. So instead of it being specific to X, Y, and Z, it just allows us to say it's potentially going to have like a safety, et cetera, impact in the area, and we get an additional 1% of sales for that. So 3% of sales at what will probably be the biggest dispensary in the state is great for Hoboken.
Council President. Yeah, just a clarification on the contribution agreement. It's either $50,000 or 1% of annual sales on top of their 2% of every sale tax goes to the city of Hoboken. And it's whatever is greater. So if they have a bad year and they don't have 1% of total sales equaling $50,000, they still owe the additional $50,000 to the city. Hopefully they'll sell many more product than that, and 1% will be a lot more than $50,000 per year. But no matter what, on top of 2% of every sale, they're going to be giving $50,000 a year in perpetuity minimum. Could be 1% more. I got a tour of the facility with the owner, who is also the manager of the Antique Loft, and was impressed with the operations. And of course, they've gone through the process of approval through the Cannabis Review Board, through the Planning Board, and compliant with all the council ordinances with respect to cannabis dispensaries. And I am supportive. Thank you, Council President.
Anyone else? Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Fusco.
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Gene Tino,
No.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mr. Russo,
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes. CD2, Councilman Fisher.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
1500 Clinton.
Yeah, so CD2 is the redevelopment agreement for 1500 Clinton. I don't know if everyone remembers, this is a property that has a long history, not a long history, a short history, and is a big, giant, huge city block, and there's been a lot of different things contemplated on it. At one point, there was a little bit of a frenzy to build a giant 20-plus story building, full city block to accommodate our DPW garage, and that was just completely inconsistent with the North End plan and would have put a wrench into the entire, North End plan. And so we were happy to be able to give some feedback and kind of reorient this project. So now it's more consistent with our plan. It did require an amendment to the plan to change some of what was going to be commercial space into residential space. I think in the current environment, in the near future, I think there's a lot of concern about building any commercial space anywhere, just with all the changes in work habits, et cetera. So I think the fact that we were able to get a much more modest project, important to me, and I know when we put together the North End plan, it was important to everyone that was a part of it, was to not have a full 100% lot coverage building on that site. These are massive blocks. They're the biggest blocks in the city. They're 400 feet long by 200 feet wide. And so what we were able to really, kind of wrestle and get to a better place is now there's 2 buildings with space in the middle. And when you look at it on a plan, you're like, oh, it's monopoly. It's a couple more buildings. But when you're walking by a long city block and you have the ability to have this break, between buildings, it's like from a feel standpoint, it was really important to make sure it felt more like Hoboken and less than Jersey City. So I'm excited about where this came out to. Member of the public, Lizer Techo, mentioned it has very few 3 bedrooms. And, I hope that given all the conversations we've had on affordability and lack of family size units, that even after tonight, we'll maybe have an opportunity to revisit some of that, in the future to see if there is a way to incorporate more family size units in this building at a later date. Just keeping that conversation. I'm looking at Chris. I know we're agreeing this, but maybe there's an opportunity to revisit some of those and get a few more 3 bedrooms. So I hope everyone supports it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. The planning board looked at this and found it to be compliant with the master plan. To this point about the 3 bedrooms, I have to disagree. I mean, many years ago, former Councilman Mello was strenuously advocating for more 3-bedroom units, and I think at the time I agreed with him. I can tell you that in the last 7 out of the last 8 years on the planning board, there have almost only been 3 bedrooms coming, and they all sell for $2.5+ million, and so they really are not family oriented to stay in town, which we all thought a nice 3-bedroom apartment would be cheaper than a row house, and that would keep our families. But they're incredibly expensive, and frankly, I think the pendulum has swung so that we actually need smaller 1-bedroom units, and when you're developing accordingly. So I would, there is data on this, and I think urging more 3 bedrooms is a mistake, but I support this project nonetheless, and I think the number that's in there is probably the right number for 3 bedrooms. Thank you.
Council President? Sure. Just to add my 2 cents to this, I think this is 2 very separate conversations. I think you're right, Councilman. I think we do need some more 1-bedrooms, but we most certainly need more 3-bedrooms that are affordable to the residents in the city of Hoboken. And as everyone on this dais knows and everyone in the audience knows, we have been doing our very best to continue to build those types of units for residents in the city. that are in that demographic. So I think you're both right, but when it comes to this, this project, I agree. I think one bedrooms. Yes, correct.
Because there are 38 affordable units.
Which is great.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I'll segue off of what Councilman Doyle just said. There are 38 affordable units in this project. I spoke with the developer just to confirm, because when I read the agreement, I wasn't clear on it, and he assured me and agreed that all these affordable units will be indistinguishable from the market rate units. There won't be separate entrances. There will not be separate finishes. You will not know, looking down a hallway, which unit is which. Talking about 3-bedroom affordable units, there are actually 8. 8 of the 13, I counted 13 instead of 12. 8 of them are affordable. So 2/3 of them, 3-bedroom units, are affordable. 2-bedroom, there are 23 2-bedroom units that are affordable of the 60 altogether, which are also larger size units. So 60 of the units. There are going to be, for very low income, 1 studio, 3 low income, and 3 moderate income for studio or 1 bedrooms. These are the affordable units. For 2 bedrooms, 3 of them will be very low income, 9 for low income, and 11 for moderate incomes. And 3 bedrooms, 1 is for very low income, 3 is for low income, and 4 is for moderate income. So there's significant number of affordable housing that's included in this. I think that's a good thing. There's also a green circuit that's going to be on 15th Street. I mentioned to the students from All Saints earlier that they'll be happy to know that there will be a protected 2-way bike path as part of the green circuit. It will be a beautiful retail corridor as well as a green circuit. There's significant amount of retail space on the entire 15th Street facade. There's also going to be, which is somewhat unusual in this point in the process, a really beautifully landscaped lateral park. Councilwoman Fisher referred to the fact that it was the intent and the plan not to have a super block, but rather to have the block broken up with a lateral park. And this lateral park, I think, will be particularly inviting because in addition to having a beautiful landscape architecture, design landscape plan, there's also going to be a 9,400-foot community flex space that's currently being discussed with the library as being a library annex. So not only is it going to be a broken up block, but it's going to have a public library branch, and that's the plan. It hasn't been finalized yet, but there are active discussions going on between the library board and the city. The intent is, and before I served on the city council, I served on the public library space search committee, and we were looking very actively about locations in the 5th Ward where we could have a library. So many people enjoy the services of the library who live in Northwest Hoboken, but the classes fill up very quickly, the programs are full, and it's a long walk for the folks to go down to Church Square Park. The idea of having something that's convenient in the North End in this new neighborhood, and that's what we're creating here, a new neighborhood, is really exciting. So I'm really excited about the affordable housing element. I'm very excited that we could have a new library branch here. And I want to compliment the mayor, Director Brown, his staff for working very closely with this. This has been an ongoing saga. Councilwoman Fisher referred to the chapter when we're looking at this as a possible DPW site. We've kind of come full circle now, and we're back very close to what the original plan was for the North End rehabilitation, redevelopment area. And I think it's going to be an exciting new neighborhood for the 5th Ward. Thank you, Council President.
Council President?
Sure.
I'm just ecstatic that it's not the DPW site and that the linear park was preserved in the latest version of this. So I will be supporting it. I just want to confirm, you said there's 38 affordable units.
Total of 38.
And 2/3 of them are 3 bedrooms?
8 of the 38.
No.
1%.
8 of the 38 affordable units are 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, no, I thought you had said.
23 of the 38 are 2 bedrooms, and 7 of the
Yeah.
38 are studio or 1 bedroom.
So it's less than, I don't know what that is, 22%-ish? Or 3? 21? See, I'm close. Closer than 2/3.
No, he's, well, of the 13 three-bedroom. Are
I
affordable.
think we're good.
Nope,
Yeah,
I got to talk.
that's what I said.
All right, yeah.
Mr. Farina, call the vote?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were going to.
Thank you, Council President.
Sure.
I think one of the givebacks is $3.2 million. That's correct. I think the only thing that I'm disappointed with was in terms of the givebacks is there were bonuses that could be given to the developer if they wanted to do a little bit more. We'll give you maybe 2 more stories, and maybe that's a $5 or $6 million bonus. At one point in time, there was a special assessment tax for this that they were looking at for this district for a new light rail stop at the end of 15th Street. None of those things, while I'm not in favor of a special tax there, but if we created a little more bonus density, bonus height for those things, we could have gotten extra money for the infrastructure improvements, for the light rail station, for an educational space. And all those things are missing from this agreement. And that's ultimately, while I'm in favor of it, but that's a missed opportunity in my eyes, in the grand scheme of things. You know, and we all know why we're not looking for the extra density. You know, we have to say his name, like Voldemort, right? We won't say the person's name. We all know what the limitations are there. But that's a limitation where ultimately the Hoboken taxpayers are losing out on extra funding because we're being dictated by someone else. Thank you.
Council President, I'll say his name. Brian Stack. It's what's wrong with politics, right? It's when a state senator can influence control over the actions of our city, and it's not good for our city. So this council can only do as much as we're given, and I think that working with the administration and our subcommittee, we came up with a fine solution. But if anyone has an issue with how how the entire city, but particularly the north, develops, I think we need to hold Brian Stack accountable. And I'm going to use my next couple months on the council to paint a very vivid picture in terms of how government works, and I'm excited to do so. But for now, I'm good with this agreement.
It's also compliant with the law, by the way. Right. It's also compliant with the law. The law is the zoning of the area. So it does not exceed the zoning of the area.
But we could have given, but there's bonuses in there for a reason, right? We wrote you could receive bonuses if you do X, money to a fire department, money to the police department.
$3.2 million can't be spent on a new light rail station? Is it
3.2 need the whole thing? There's a lot of things we need.
A whole lot of blocks.
There's a lot of things we need.
Right?
We're looking to spend $200 million there, right? Right?
Right.
Right?
Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes.
See, even when we agree, we got to fight.
Goodness.
We can always do better.
CD6, Councilman Doyle.
CD6, I was hoping maybe we could just carry this for, CD6 pertains to a feasibility study for the Performing Arts Center diagonally across the intersection here. The Community Development Subcommittee is getting some pretty scary numbers with regard to if the Performing Arts Center is to be included in this development. And again, as I'm sure Councilwoman Fisher will point out, you know, these numbers are the numbers generated by the developer, so they may not turn out to be as accurate, but you know, we've been told we need about a 28-story building there down along Observer Highway in order to generate the revenue needed for the Performing Arts Center. And, you know, I'm perfectly happy with a free Performing Arts Center for the city, but at some point, what we have to give to get it is what I'm questioning. So this is a feasibility study. I guess it's not being paid for by the escrow. If the developer's not paying for this. So and it's only $15,000, but still. So I'm not saying we should not do this ever, but I'm saying I think we need to get a handle on whether there's an appetite for the Performing Arts Center versus something else. There's been talk of a supermarket here, other things that this area of the city needs. And so I'm advocating that we just pull this for tonight, or carry it, I should say, and
Councilman Cohen, you're the sponsor of this item.
So, I mean, I'd like to hear from Councilman DeFusco, but my recollection, Councilman Doyle, is that when we talked about this in our meeting, we were trying to get more data points to help us determine really how tall this building needs to be in order to support a performing arts center, which was Councilman DeFusco's interest, and it's in the first ward. So, the thinking here was that with this additional study, we would get better information so that we could make a decision as to, how high is it necessary in order to be sustaining. So I'm not sure how carrying this is going to move the ball forward. I mean, it's not a lot. It's not to say $15,000 isn't a lot of money. It's important, but I think in order to make a decision with respect to a large development like this, it would be a worthwhile expenditure to get the council more information as to how high it's necessary to build in order to keep that performing arts center. So I don't know what Councilman DeFusco thinks.
Council President May? So some back history. The site of the CVS, the current CVS on Newark, right across the street from City Hall, back at the turn of the century was a vaudevillian theater. It was the Gaiety? What was, Mike, do you remember the name of it?
Fabian.
The Fabian, yeah. A beautiful structure that, if you look in the Historic Society, it graced the corner across from City Hall in a way that was a true loss, not just for Hoboken, but for the performing arts in the entire region. So when the council subcommittee started to talk about this proposed location, they were, confronted with the issue that we're always confronted with, right? Like how many units, what's the ground floor experience? And nothing was that interesting to me from a community perspective to move this project forward. It would just be another gray building that had no personality, adding more traffic, adding more people to our schools, adding just more congestion to my neighborhood. So working with Councilman Russo and Councilman Cohen and Councilman Doyle, we discussed the concept of bringing a performing arts center to this corner to replace what was lost. Now, with anything, as you heard Councilman Ramos correctly and passionately summarized before, it's a careful trade-off, right? What are you going to get for what for the additional benefit to the community? There is a potential for height that might be at least significant for what we consider Hoboken, but not significant for what this area has already approved, right? We approved the New Jersey Transit Rail Yard plan, which would be a similar height to what might be proposed here. However, I'm speaking in non-definitive terms because we don't actually know, right? So this study is what would help us make the decision as to whether a performing arts center is actually feasible there. And now for the public's consumption and for my colleagues' understanding that aren't on the subcommittee, I said 4/1 sounds really good to me because 4 stories over ground floor is what's permitted in the district. And that's never going to get built because it's probably one of the most prime real estate lots in the entire region. But that's what I'm okay with. Anything over 4/1 without a significant community give back is just not going to happen under my watch. And my watch is ending for the time being in 7 months. So I want to make sure that we have a structure here that's going to stand the test of time and be fair to the people of the First Ward. That's why I would prefer not to push this any further. $15,000 is a lot of money, but I want to get this study done quickly so we can make an informed decision as to how to move forward. And I hope to have a plan that the community can agree on by the end of this year. And it is actually my main priority to make sure that happens before I sign off for the time being on December 31st. So I would urge the council to move this forward, and I would appreciate your support in it.
Fair enough.
And Council President, I think we have 15,000 left over from the Iron State infusion, so.
Councilman Cohen?
So, Councilman Doyle, would it be all right with you? We voted on this tonight.
No, I just asked, and the answer is
Okay.
no, so
Council, I would move for a vote, Council
Mr.
President.
Freena, call the vote.
Excuse me, Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
No.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes. E7, Councilman Fisher.
Yeah, just E7 and E8, I guess I was a little disappointed to see how much of the settlement funds have we already spent? And I was a little disappointed to see that the Monarch settlement funds would be used to buy office furniture, right? Like when we think about the long history around that project, I think the community was thinking that the settlement funds would be used for, you know, either the build out of the Monarch site or helping to build out the 800 Monroe site. And so seeing that the funds are being used for office furniture just feels like inconsistent with what we thought it was going to be.
I don't know, Director, do you want to?
And how much, I guess the question is, how much was it in total and how is it being spent?
So if I could clarify the purpose of these funds. So there was an incentive payment in the original settlement agreement in the amount of $500,000 that was for vacation of the garage by a certain date, 256 Observer Highway. This addition was in the most recently approved amendment to the redevelopment agreement that actually increased that payment to $1 million. Which was solely for the purpose, it actually says in the agreement, the purpose of those particular funds are for the relocation of the garage from 256 Observer Highway. So while there are, I think it's generally called Monarch Settlement Funds in the title of the resolution, perhaps that is a little misleading, and I will certainly correct that for future resolutions. But this is specific to the relocation of the garage, and this is a separate amount of money than the actual settlement funds themselves.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You can vote on both at
On
the
both?
same time.
Sure. On E7 and E8, Mr. Farina.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
No.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes. T1, Councilman Fisher.
Yeah, this is, it's a technical question. I read through the contract. The extra fees, I didn't understand how like the 250, what the 250 fee was, who it applied to. Can you just maybe explain what that is and whether or not like people that use the garage, are they paying 250 extra every time they drive, or I didn't know?
No.
Okay.
So this is a monthly billing software program. So if you're a monthly customer of these garages, you're going to use this portal to pay your invoice, basically. And when you pay through the system, it's at no cost to the city. And the way that works is that there's a small convenience fee, or it's really a merchant processing fee, right? When you pay $100 or $200 a month, adds up to a couple dollars, basically. So that gets passed on to the customer. It's a small charge to keep it at no cost to the city, and it's something that's been in effect through at least as long as I've been here and before that.
So this is for someone who has a monthly spot in the garage, that if they're paying 180 or whatever, they're going to pay 182.50 if they use the portal?
Yes.
Okay. And is it for people that use the garage on a daily basis, it doesn't impact them at all? It's just the monthly?
Well, monthly only.
Okay.
Yep.
I park in a last garage. Now I'm going to have to go back and look at my invoice and see if they charge me $250. So, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That was it.
Any other questions? Mr. Farina on T1.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes.
Ordinances for introduction.
No, wait. Did I not say CL3?
You did
All
not?
right. Never mind then. I thought I did. Okay, go ahead.
Ordinances.
Ordinance for introduction, amending Chapter 58-23 for activity permits in city parks.
Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Not on C.
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yeah.
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mr. Russo.
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes.
Hearing on, ordinance for introduction, amending Chapter 190-11 entitled Loading Zone. They had loading zones at various locations on Bloomfield Street, Fifth Street, Garden Street, and amend existing loading zone on River Street.
Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Fusco,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Fisher,
Yes.
Giantino,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mr. Russo,
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes.
Ordinance for introduction, amending Chapter 190-4C entitled Parking Prohibited in Certain Hours to add pickup and drop-off zones on 8th Street.
Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Fusco,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Giantino,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
Mr. Russo,
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes.
Ordinance for introduction, amending Chapter 190-71 entitled Municipally Managed EV Stations to add 2 DC fast charging stations to Bloomfield Street between 14th Street and 15th Street at no cost to the city.
Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Giantino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes.
Ordinance for
Council
introduction,
President, just-
amending Chapter 168-1100 entitled Bike Share Location designated to add city bike docking stations near Hoboken Terminal and relocate city bike docking stations at Hudson and 4th Street.
I just want to confirm the location of this before we vote on it. It's going on the park side?
On the park, I'm sorry, this is the 4th and Hudson.
Correct. So
It's going on the west
Stevens-
side of Hudson Street, I believe, in the street.
Yeah, west side, so it's
So
the
not the park.
southwest, southwest
So
corner.
it's across the
bike
street where
lane
it is
side.
currently.
The bike lane side, and it's the 3rd and 4th segment on Hudson
Right, so
Street.
not the church side. That'd be the north side
Yep.
of 4th Street,
So it's
the
between
south
3rd and
side,
4th.
but it's on Hudson Street where the bike lane is.
Fine with that.
Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle? Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour.
Yes.
Ordinance for introduction, amending Chapter 190 entitled Vehicles and Traffic, amend curbside parking regulations adjacent to City Hall.
Council President, a point of order. I just want to clarify, the change to the official business placards from 8 PM is now to 5 PM? Am I reading that correct, or is this other than those official business placards?
This is this would be open up the street for public parking after 5 PM.
So on a Wednesday council meeting when I drive in from work?
This is
I won't
specifically
have
targeted at you.
I won't have the ability to park outside of City Hall?
That's a
I think we've
directorship.
addressed that.
We were hoping Councilman Russo couldn't come to the meetings anymore.
Got a better chance of seeing Jesus.
That we'd all ride
I
our
don't
bikes.
think he realized.
We keep an eye out for your car first
Yeah, I
and
know you
foremost.
do.
Yeah.
Don't worry, and you text right away.
No, so we're trying to maximize the utilization around City Hall block, right? There's a lot of dead time historically there, kind of overnight, and we want to give more parking back to the residents that live around here. So we're trying to play around with the timing a little bit. So the way we're doing that is we're handing out placards for council members at certain times. So you'll be able to park in designated areas on Bloomfield Street,
Right.
on City Hall block. So we haven't given them out yet. We have them downstairs, for our customer service division to give out to you. So I'll go down there and get them in a few minutes if you want to grab them on the way out.
But
You pay my
they're-
parking ticket too?
No.
But it's an area that's still going to be public parking after 5? Or
After 5, yeah.
So we're still competing with the public when we get here? The spots won't
Correct.
be available?
No, he's
No.
saying,
If
no,
anyone
he's
wants
saying
to
that
hitch a
there will
ride on my
be.
e-scooter, you're more than welcome. I got room.
The way it's supposed to work is that it's for the public like 98% of the time, right? If there's a council meeting night, you'll have a special placard there, and if we have to clear the parking for a few hours, we can do that.
Yeah, but Director, that doesn't work because we all have committee meetings usually in the evening hours. I mean, and again, if I was in Hoboken all day, it would be a different story. But I'm coming in from work, I'm driving from out of town, and then what then, right? Like, so, again, I'm just one person, and we'll vote accordingly, but I just don't think that that works well for council members, especially those that work out of town and have to drive back into Hoboken to
I live
get
in the North
to a
End and I
meeting.
drive anyway. I don't work out of town, but.
At the
can't
end of
we
the day,
leave
the goal
one-
here is to try to increase parking for residents around City Hall.
Can't win.
What?
We will absolutely accommodate you. That the intention is not to try to keep council members from driving to City Hall or doing business
I don't
here.
know. Sometimes I get on.
Except for you, Council Vice President.
Most of the subcommittee meetings are still on Zoom, so I'm not sure.
One of the 3 streets to be left.
Well,
At
it sounds like
8
that's what Director Sharp is saying,
And I
that
didn't mean
No, he's not.
for this to get into a big conversation
that there will be
now, but-
placards to designate on evenings of council meetings,
What's
so
going
that
to
there
be?
is designated parking.
I mean, look, if we don't have all the information, I'm happy to meet with you and try to figure out, what the best arrangement would be to accommodate you. I mean, that again, because our goal is not to try to keep you guys or make your life more difficult or anything like that. We're trying to balance the competing needs of, residents, visitors, council meetings, official police business that happens during courts. It's probably one of the most, if not the most complex block in all of Hoboken for curbside management. So we may not get it perfect this time. If you want to carry it, that's fine. It's not an urgent matter. We can work together and we'll find a solution that'll work for everybody.
Between first and
fine
second
with
reading.
the
It's only
5
first
p.m.
reading.
It doesn't matter to me. I have no problem voting on it now and
up to you
having a
guys.
discussion. And like I said, I'm one person, but that's the concern that I have. That's it.
Let's move forward with the vote, and we can discuss this between first and second reading. Mr. Farina, please call the vote.
Mr. Cohen? Aye. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes, on first reading.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Russo?
No.
President Jabour?
Yes.
Ordinance for introduction, amending Chapter 196 zoning of the municipal code of City of Hoboken, permitted use in I-1W subdistrict.
Mr. Farina, please call the vote.
Mr. Cohen? Aye. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes.
Resolution CD7, resolution referring an ordinance amending Chapter 196 zoning of the municipal code of City of Hoboken regarding permitted use in I-1W subdistrict to the Hoboken Planning Board for review and recommendation.
Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen? Aye. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes. There are 2 new items that were added under new business for those who have copies in the room. The first, NB1, is just to designate that this is an urgent item, and the second, NB2, is an agreement with Jersey City to pay rental fees associated with a stage that's being rented for the Southwest Fest. It came in after the agenda, and so in order to ensure that that event can proceed as planned, we needed to add it as an emergency item just to make sure that that cost is covered so that the stage will be available for that event, which is, I believe, coming up this weekend.
June 3rd,
June 3rd, thank you.
1 to 7.
So that is before the next council meeting, which is why it was added as new business. Do council members have any questions or concerns on adding these items?
Party.
And can we vote on them together, NB1 and NB2?
Yep.
Mr. Farina, please call the vote on both.
Mr. Cohen? Aye. Fusco?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
President Jabour?
Yes. Public portion, Mr. Farina.
Provenzano?
June 3rd, 1 to 7. Performances. Get up, Jan, dance for you.
Good evening. This is going to be more of an ask. the city council passes a bunch of ordinances and legislation. So I'll just use this as an example. It's not a critique, but we passed something, I believe last year or the year before, we passed something about water on the sidewalks coming off of drainage from some pumps and things like that. That involves city workers actually having to go look at that, and it adds a little bit to their workload. So just keep that in the back of your head as I describe this. So we just had a little bit of a discussion for the first 5 months of this year, maybe even extended to last year, about the rent control. So I know in my time, people are asking me questions on rent control. I'm asking some of you questions on rent control. So people are still a little bit confused. So what that does is, though, it impacts probably our rent office. So they're inundated with people. Every time I walk by there, there's 1 or 2 people waiting to speak to them. So we know the office is light a person. I think in the budget for this year, we were going to add someone else in there to deal with some things. Because I know rent calculations, somebody had told me, took them 4 or 5 months. When I called Jersey City and I called Union City today, they told me a couple weeks. So one of the things that I think that when things are decided up here is there's unintended, I'll use that word again, unintended consequences. But the city employees are now left giving the residents less of a service because they're inundated with extra things that we've put on their plate by trying to do the right thing. So I would ask that resources be put towards the rent office. One, because only I'm understanding about 40% of landlords in the town are actually signed up. And that's a monumental task in itself. But that's probably a one-person job that's already pulled out of this whole situation down there. So if we're going to do things up here, we need to think about giving the resources to the actual department, to Director Brown's people. He didn't pay me to come up here and do this. This is on my own, just seeing it. So as we think when we make decisions up here, we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure or the people in place to make sure that those services are done in the proper way for the community. Because you shouldn't wait 4 months or 5 months for a rent calculation on something. And I don't hold them at fault. They're backed up. But if we could put resources towards it, especially in a hot issue, we could probably alleviate a lot of problems in town for people, coming out here with pitchforks if they could answer questions quicker. Thank you.
Liz or Techo?
Funded man.
Just a couple things. Can someone give us an update on what's happening with the Weehawken pool and Hoboken's ability to use it this summer? Because next weekend is Memorial Day, so we're kind of curious what's going on. And secondly, I wanted to make a comment that as an outspoken spoken resident on cannabis for the past year, I'm happy that Terrapin is coming in. It is the right business in the right location and abiding by all of our cannabis ordinances. So thank you.
I can actually answer your question on the Weehawken pool, which is they have not actually responded to Hoboken's request for information about how non-Weehawken residents can use the pool. I've been copied on several emails to their respective director in the city of Weehawken, and they have not responded. So I'm not certain of that, but we have certainly made attempts over the last several months to find that information out ahead of this season and have not yet had a response.
Mary Andreka?
Higher, please. Okay, it's all right. Mayor Andreka, 159 9th Street. What I have here is a plan to approach the plague of spotted lanternflies in the city of Hoboken. I took the time to do this, and I've had a meeting with Jennifer Gonzalez, who was gracious and understands where I'm coming from, and I understand where she's going. This year will be horrendously worse than last year because all of the lanternfly egg masses laid last fall and all have now hatched as of late April. Most of the egg patches were on the top branches of the hundreds and hundreds of trees in Hoboken. The Palisades, Patterson Plank Road area, Stevens Institute of Technology grounds, and all the backyards of the donuts of residential Hoboken where the Ailanthus altissima tree of heaven, were allowed to grow in monolithic sizes, some over 5 stories high. As of May 5th, I started killing the lanternfly hatchlings, which are about 1/16 to 1/8 in size. They have all the attributes of the bugs as they get larger and walk across the leaves and stems, emit the sticky honeydew sap from their bodies, are killing the foliage, and they hop when trying to be caught. Because they are so small, they cannot hop far and are easily killed. I've killed over 300 of them. I kill them between my thumb and a leaf or stem, and with both of my hands when I enclose them around a stem where 10 to 15 are all lined up in a row. Spraying vinegar does not work. You can douse it. It just doesn't work like they say. I've already been over to the Dave Calamineri to speak with him, and regarding the lanternflies, he told me that the residents were required to spray their infected trees, especially the ailanthus trees, every 2 weeks or cut the tree down. That's what you got, your choice, or you're fined. These are the only 2 choices. The ailanthus tree is the host tree for the lanternflies, as each come from the native China. Now, how is this reinforced? What is the city doing about curtailing the scourge? How is the city dictating to the public that everyone has to participate to help eliminate this problem? Stomping on a few bugs when they have wings does absolutely nothing. The battle is lost by then because these winged adults lay their eggs high up in the trees where no one can reach them to kill them before hatching the next year. David said that recently a condo owner on Willow and 6th cut down 4 modestly sized ailanthus trees, which cost $9,900. And an owner at 321 Bloomfield cut down a huge one at an unknown price because of the complaints of the neighbors that due to the mess and the damage that the sap and the resulting black mold causes around the neighbors. We've got to take action. This is a pestilence. It is important to remember that the lanternfly drops gallons of sap over everything 24 hours a day. I've watched them. And that sap turns into black mold, and that mold is eaten by rats. Now, I have spoken to Anthony Romano of Hudson County per telephone conversation today, and he told me that the county cannot do a thing until you people tell him what to do, what you want, when you want it, how to assist the city of Hoboken spotted lanternfly scourge. They need to act fast. They're small. They're easy to kill. They're only this big. They're only this big. I've killed, like I said, over 300 to 500 at this point. I go out every day. I spend an hour. Now, it affects everybody in this town. It's not just me. And it's going to get far worse. My suggestions: 1, there must be an inventory made of each and every ailanthus tree in this 1 mile square city. I don't know how you do it, but you're going to have to do it. 2, there must be an outreach to residents who live within the donut to report on their own ailanthus tree or trees, and they should tell about their neighbors' trees that are ailanthus. As much as possible, all landlords need to be notified. There must be a vigilant attempt at a record of when affected trees and tree areas are sprayed, and then there must be some follow-up made to have them resprayed every single 2 weeks. The attack on this pestilence should be done within the lanternfly is in this initial nymph stage, a tiny black bug with white spots. It will grow to 3 different sizes as a black bug before it sheds itself to become a red nymph. You've lost the battle, right there and there. The county needs to help us. The city needs to put in place a program to aid homeowners, and all large infected trees should be injected. Hear me now. Injected, not sprayed, as this is the best way to deal with the feeding of the lanternflies. You will never reach the treetops. Spraying should be relegated to the small trees and plants. That is what is being done in Pennsylvania. They have been working at this since 2014. I have this report that I made up for all of you. I only have a color copy for the president, Emily, but Jennifer has a copy, and I will give Dave a copy. The danger is you cannot let them get beyond the black stage. I'm just showing you the color copies, the pictures. This is the ailanthus tree behind me. It is over 5 stories tall. The trunk is humongous. It will cost thousands to take it down. Yet Dave says they are taking them down because it's cheaper than spending $3,000 to have men go up into the heights every 2 weeks. And it kills everything below it. This is this cherry tree behind me, not in my yard, but it's been just being destroyed. My grapevine, which I'm struggling to save again. And here, that is my leaf this big with 22 of them on it. I got them all. Now, you guys, I know you're not landscapers, and I don't expect you to go out in the field. But you as a council has got to help get this town united to fight this scourge. We've got to kill them now when they're young, because our quality of life, no matter how many parks we make, it will be disrupted beyond belief because there's millions of them now. So, Emily, I didn't want to pay for all these colors.
I'll take it. Thank you so much.
Give her the top one, and the rest of you have the black and whites. Please, at your leisure, read this. I took the time to do it. And one last thing, the nymphs are not choosy. They eat everything at this stage. Flowers, perennials, weeds, everything. When they get a little bigger, then they get choosier and start destroying the London planes, the grapevines, the ailanthus, everything that has sugar in it. And then you've got your constant sugar everywhere. The one picture where they're lined up, it's not a very good shot. Dave told me about that. I went over there and I removed them all. It was next to the fence. It's a 222. They've got a big ailanthus tree in there. It's half dead because it's dying. So we're not destroying anything wonderful. I'm a nature person. I'm out to try and save it. Thank you for your time and allowing me to go run over.
Thank you, Mary.
I have a question for the speaker. Mary, I have a question. With regards to the spray, I think residents ask me all the time, like it's a huge problem. So thank you for focusing on this. Is it something that someone could purchase like regularly?
No,
it's
not. In fact, I went over to the hardware store to see if there was some kind of hand thing.
Yeah.
But the last thing that I forgot to tell you, speaking of sprays, because that's not that effective. You're only getting the ones at the bottom, and they all come down, and the other ones come from other trees. It's a losing battle. What they're doing in Pennsylvania, and Dave spoke of this, is it's a proven approach to controlling it is on medium to the large-sized trees. They employ a trunk injection method to deliver dinotophorin. It's a highly effective insecticide, and when injected, it rapidly moves through the entire tree and quickly begins to kill the bugs feeding on it. That's the way to go. That's the most cost-effective, most realistic way. And on the smaller trees, you have a small little tree, like a sugar maple or something, you can use the spray, but you better do it every 2 weeks. You're not going to get away from if nobody wants to spend the money, then cut to the chase and cut the tree down. The problem is the ailanthus tree. It starts there, and it spreads all out. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Davis.
Oh.
Bugs.
My bugs. They're actual bugs? Those are actual bugs?
Good evening, City Council. All right.
Not done.
You got a cake?
No cake today. I hope the police officers enjoyed it the last meeting. I was glad to share it with them. Did you know that we have public financing of elections in Hoboken? I actually had no idea either until one day in March I opened my mailbox and, oh my God, look at this Hoboken City newsletter. Oh, it's the mayor. Oh, there's 3 more pictures of the mayor. I mean, I didn't realize we were using taxpayer dollars to promote our elected officials. I mean, I know that it's promoting Hoboken, but it's got everything that a campaign flyer would have except for the date of the election and meritless claims against Councilwoman Fisher. My God. So I was curious of how much the city spent on this. So I did an Oprah request, and I got the invoice, and you know what? I'm glad that you guys were good stewards of taxpayer money because it was only $15,800 that you spent on it for 32,500 copies. It's a great deal. Look at all these pages, look at all the color. That's less than 50 cents a mailer. You guys did great with that. And we really should have public financing, but for everyone running for office, not just the incumbents. I mean, you heard it from the audience, but, part of it is, we should use our city resources to really inform people on what's going on rather than promoting the people currently in power. And, I look at the invoice, it's done by the city spokesperson. I mean, at this rate, we're going to have spokespeople for the spokespeople. I mean, now I regret saying it because you might think that's a good idea, but it isn't. So, I really wish that, everybody can get the great rate on postage and design services that the city got. I think that's great. We have the mayor's chief of staff, and I got to give him a shout out because I don't know how he's able to do 2 jobs. It's hard enough doing just one. In addition to being chief of staff, he has a second job doing political consulting for a lot of the people still in office. But the question is whether he's using his day job to help his night job, because he gets the information from his day job that many of us are not privy to because we're not on the city council, we're not elected officials, and then he can use that information to help keep the people in office who employ him. I mean, he's Superman, but I guess his kryptonite is good government. So, I really wish that for the newsletters, we would focus on, making it less glossy, making it more about Hoboken, making it not look exactly like the campaign flyers. We also, the mayor's chief of staff is not the only staff member that's involved in political campaigns. The business administrator is involved as well. I'm embarrassed to say this, but when I was volunteering for Team Bala candidates in 2021, I remember going into the office and seeing the business administrator. So it'd really be great if we can have like a separation between the administrative and policy city officials and the politics. So that's all I have for this evening. Thank you, City Council.
Patricia Waiters.
That was good, so I don't mind that you passed me. Patricia Waiters. As comical as that is, and I wasn't going to pull this out until the last speaker said that, here's a little homemade flyer with me on it. And it says, vote for Patricia Waiters, the voice and strength for the people, right? And somebody had the nerve, one of my opponents that was running against me, and it says integrity, respect, and transparency. I think his name is Phil Cohen. But anyway, they came with this at election day. You know how they stand on all the corners and give them out? And say, why you didn't put on there paid by? And I laughed. He said, that's a campaign violation. So my daughter said, well, Mommy, you could go to jail. I said, I wish half of the politicians was that nervous. That what I teach my kids, because I'm teaching them integrity. And I'm laughing because it's so true. Every time I run for me to be the underdog, you know what my victory is after the election? Because I do. Whether you want to believe it or not, I get stopped by so many people. That's the girl, Patricia Waters. The minute I open my mouth in a grocery store, anywhere. Can I ask you a question, Patricia? Is this? And because they know I have the answer. I'm mentioning tonight real briefly because I see Emily Jabor, sometimes I see Jen at the Board of Ed meetings, and I'm a Board of Ed employee. But what's happening right now in the Board of Ed, we cannot look the opposite way and take a known disregard. And I promise not to get emotional, and I promise you to, but I have to place this on the record. I don't mean to be all over the place, but this is very, very important, especially that an election coming up. I'm seeing a lot of new faces being offered to run, and the same thing gonna happen. People tired of it happening. But I wanna just read Michael Russo's text into the record and show you how our town was. So even if me and Mike is beefing and got beef or whatever, we put politics aside when it comes to people's quality of life. The ambulance was called and the fire department called on a 911 call. I was almost in the mix of a massive heart attack. And Michael Russo, this is his text is going back. Geez, what happened? Did they come yet? Where's the doctor? Where's the cardiologist? The white is Michael Russo texting me back and forth. Pat, how are you feeling now? What is the doctor saying? I said, Mike, I'm feeling a little better, but the cardiologist just ruled, I have bad news. The cardiologist just ruled, according to the test, we have never seen a heartbeat beating at 158 beats a minute. My daughter's standing there saying, Mommy, is it worth it? But if God would have took me that night, I would have said it's worth it. because I have a passion for politics. I don't sit here. I don't pick sides. I don't care what none of y'all say. I was always loyal to myself. The famous words of Michelle Russo sitting on that back bench that I beg y'all to take and say, just name it after her. Because she used to look at me when Mo DiGennaro and all of them used to come up here and talk. They give me little notes. And I would stand here and try to read for Helen Hirsch and everybody. I go way back. But we loved each other. We didn't care how much contracts and money and stuff we had. We took care of each other in Hoboken. We were so close-knit, but now all you see is fights. And yes, I go on social media and answer some of those things sarcastically, because it's not fair to the residents that live here to have anybody say, I'm running for office, I'm going to represent you, you stuck with me whether you like it or not. And that's the feeling that people hurt. Mike, you know I was with you 100%. And then we get the text that you say you're not running. Do you ever think how many people you also going to impact that love Michael Del Fusco? Do you understand that? So that's why I was mad at Doyle at first, but then I wasn't, because Doyle said, I'm not running. Up until the end, 2 weeks later, Doyle ran. And there's people that like Doyle, they're happy that he ran. You feel me? So let's take old politics and put it behind us, because the next couple of months, these investigations that's coming in this city, get ready. Buckle up. Buckle up. For me to see directors, and this is what I'm going to ask you, because I don't know if I could talk about CC1 and CC2, because Corporation Counsel probably can answer this. I hope it's not the 2 employees that I'm thinking about. Because, see, that's what I'm talking about when I say bring in a new director and get rid of the old director for misconduct. Be ready, guys, because no one man ain't going down by themselves. Excuse me, Mike, you can't answer this, right, because of the Rights Notice Act? Corporation Counsel, he can't answer this if it's employees? He cannot. Okay, thank you. But I just want those people to know that they came to me with confidence, wanted me to put it on a record. I tried. And could we just have a quick moment of silence for Manny's uncle that passed away in Puerto Rico, and he's going crazy, my phone vibrating, where he wanted me just to let y'all know he would have been here, and that was an uncle that's really near and dear to him. Please. Amen. Thank you, guys.
There are no more members of the public signed up to speak. Council members, anything? Councilman Fisher?
No.
Second. Aye.
No.
No, I meant public
portion.
Yes.
Just ready. Just a couple things. One, if you've gotten, we talked about this in our environmental services subcommittee, but apparently there's a number of residents have reached out, at least to myself and Councilwoman Giattino and maybe others, that got some crazy NHS bills this month, and turns out potentially some crazy water bills. And by crazy, like 100% increases versus the prior billing period, and in some cases, like from what was $200 up to $3,000, and they just seem to be like, yeah, I'm looking at the audience and the eyes are popping. If you've gotten one of those bills, we encourage you to reach out to the NHSA. A number of residents have done that. They like don't pay your bill. I'm not telling you not to pay your bills, but like reach out to them before you pay it. We're trying to understand like what has gone awry. It just seems so specifically not consistent with like prior billing that something might be up. And Director Gonzalez has reached out to the NHSA as well from the city to kind of look into this. And as of yesterday, no one had really heard back, but just everyone kind of be on the lookout and reach out to them, or Veolia if you got a high bill from them as well. Second, and I had spoken to Director Sharp about this earlier, but I just want to raise it publicly. 13th Street, I have had a couple residents recently raise the fact that it's one of our third world streets with like potholes and patches like between, actually I think it's all the way Hudson, all the way to Willow, but the worst block is between Washington and Bloomfield. It's a bit of a disaster, so we're hoping that the city will be able to find a way to either do some temporary fixes or at least put it in the rotation to do the repaving sooner than later. And then lastly, just we have a great tradition in Hoboken, which is one of our best nights, is the Memorial Day Parade, which is next Wednesday night starts at 6:30 at City Hall. For everyone who wants to come, it is hosted by our great and amazing American Legion. You will see the American Legion marching. You will also see the American Legion auxiliary, I can't believe I drew a blank, that I helped co-found with a number of other people out there. These are basically family members of people that, you know, whether you have a dad, a brother, you know, a grandfather that passed away. If you have had a family member that is in the service, you can join the auxiliary. It's not just for women, it's men as well. So if anyone ever wants to join, let me know. But just come out. It's a great night to celebrate. You know, it's to honor and to celebrate just being American and everything that's involved with kind of defending our country, et cetera. And it's usually just a lovely event on Washington Street. So I hope everyone joins. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Doyle? Councilman DeFusco?
Thank you, Council President. I think the audience tonight had a lot of good comments that I'd just like to talk about because each of them struck closely to items over the past couple years that we've been working on and that are important to me as well. Pat, when you talked about, she's no longer here, but when she talked about her rapid heartbeat on account of politics, that strikes particularly close to home for me because after my last election, I was in the cardiac ICU with a nearly 190 beats per second irregular heartbeat. And I really had to consider a lot at that point in time of my life and the role that politics played in putting me in that bed. And it played a lot. I'll tell you, it played a lot. And this message is for everyone here because you care about the community and all my colleagues because I definitely care about them and their service, is that everyone does this for a reason, right? Everyone gets involved because they love Hoboken and they want it to be a better place than when they found it, right? When they moved here. And that's what we're all doing. And, you know, politics is not always about a straight line. It's about working together communally through differences to get things done. And that's what I've seen with this council. It's what I've seen with this mayor. And that's what I want to encourage us all to continue to do in the near and the far future. Because if we keep on hitting each other, if we keep on only punishing each other for mistakes or decisions that didn't work out, we're all going to the same place one day. But are we going to put ourselves there faster if we don't work together? And the answer is absolutely yes. Because I made changes in my life after I left that cardiac ICU that made my life a better place for me to live in. And it made me a more efficient council person because the things that we deal with can be very personal, but we don't need to make it that way. So that's a message that really resounds with me, and I just hope to continue the productive relationships that I have here and with all of you. Kevin, as always, one of my favorite speakers. Thank you for that. Back in 2019, when I was running for re-election, I actually put forth a comprehensive ordinance that prevents city workers from working on the job. And I like to think that that doesn't happen, and I can't tell you one way or the other. But from a legislative perspective, which is all I can really offer forth, I'm not the mayor. I didn't want to be the mayor the last time around, at least. And I think that the legislation that I put forth is one of the only pieces of legislation that I can think of in the state. And I'm not sure it's enforced, but I can tell you this, that when I talk to VJ or when I talk to any of the mayor's people, they're usually very responsible with saying, I'll have to get back to you after business hours. So, I can't tell you anything more than that because I don't know, but I think that the legislation is working as a check and balance in terms of everything. And Paul, the investment in our rent control office of affordable housing is something that we do need to work on. The hiring of Vanessa Falco was a huge step forward, and she works really hard to get, to help organize the administration. And I know that this is an issue that is super important. As you very well pointed out, the budget went up this year due to additional spending on services, as well as the increased interest rates that we're all experiencing universally. It's something we need to work on, but again, it's something that we need to work on communally, right? Like we can't punch the administration expecting them to respond to like a critique. We need to sit down with the administration, understand where their priorities are, and help kind of reorganize the budgets. And we're getting closer to there, and I do think that they're doing a great job in that respect. Could always be better, like anything in life can always be better. So thank you to all the speakers. you know, it's a pretty empty room usually here, so for you guys to come out and to speak your heart really means a lot to a lot of people. And I'll close by saying this. This CVS project is important. It's important because we have an opportunity to create something that can really reshape the First Ward positively for generations to come. Development in this city has never really served this city. The first project I can actually think of that served the city is something I'm very proud of, is the terminal building and the New Jersey Transit Rail Yard. And it took years, 8 years of hard work by a number of everyone on this council and the mayor to get that done. This next project that I want to see forward in my limited time here is the CVS site. It's a disgrace. The city deserves a ground floor experience there that serves the city. And a supermarket is necessary, a performing arts center is necessary, and it's going to come with a height that we need to all be okay with. But my message tonight is what I just said. It's about collaboration, working together, seeing through differences to get this done. Mr. Presenzano, I'd like to sit down with you to talk about that, to get your ideas, to make sure that we can do that. Whoever runs against you, I would like to sit down with them also, maybe even the three of us, so we can all talk about a pledge to the First Ward that delivers a quality of life that we deserve and that that's often forgotten. So that's my long-winded message of togetherness and getting things done in the near and the short term. Thank you so much, Council President.
Yeah, I'll go now. That's fine. Just two things. One, I just have to say an absolute thank you to Vanessa Falco, to Andrew Sobel, everybody in the rent control office. They have been working absolute overtime to try to get some of these issues resolved. I mean, it really is amazing. I feel like I talk to Andrew every day at this point. So it's important just for us to recognize the fact that they are working as hard as they are to help our residents. The other thing that I want to speak about, and Director Gonzalez, if you have a minute, I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the situation I emailed you about the rats on Grand Street, where we are as far as what the next steps are. And just to remind you, it was between 3rd and 4th on Grand.
Yeah, I can look up that specific location, but just as a reminder, rodent issues are now under the purview of the health department. So I can provide an update.
Yeah, and this is more a garbage issue, I think, because we're getting, I mean, I walk that block almost every day, and there's issues with garbage that it's not that it's left out at wrong times, it's when it's being picked up, it's not fully being picked up, right? So there's always remnants. There's always, there's stuff going on in that block that is starting to get to me, especially in those basement stairs in those buildings. So if you could kind of keep that on your radar and
get
back to me with it.
I can absolutely follow up with you tomorrow regarding this particular location. I also do know that the health department and constituent services are working on a summary that will be shared with you as well.
That's great.
But in terms of this specific incident, let me get back to you because there are, as you can imagine, a lot of them in our
I'm sure.
in our inboxes. But I will certainly address this.
And then the other question I had was pertaining to the dog run at Church Square Park. We've been talking about that. I know we're looking at options for changing Church Square Park in different ways. My concern here is, imagine sitting during a funeral mass for your loved one. And at the moment when you're called up to speak about your mother or your father or your relative, and you're mourning with your family and your friends, and the only thing that you can hear are dogs barking outside the church. Even with the doors of the church closed, I think we need to figure something out. And again, I'm not saying that we have to close the dog park, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we need to be good neighbors to everyone in the city. I'm getting complaints not only from the church and the parishioners of that church, but I'm getting complaints from the neighbors as well, who are dealing with that. There needs to be a little bit more collaboration as to how we can limit certain hours. I don't know if there are any other dog parks in the city that are as active as that at 5 a.m. I just don't know if that's happening, right? And this isn't anecdotal, because I sat with the pastor of that church and I watched the video footage.
Okay.
So it's happening, right? So we need to come up with a plan here. And I'm asking you and the administration and my council colleagues to really consider making a slight change to the hours of that dog park so that the Catholic population in the city of Hoboken who visits that church gets to worship in the way that is respectful and in a way that we would expect for every other denomination and every other religion across the city of Hoboken. So I'm hoping that we can come up with some answers here. And again, I think everyone's trying to be as reasonable as possible. But 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. is just crazy.
It's 10 p.m.
Well, it's till 10 p.m., but I can.
But there are people in there 1 a.m. There's no means, and the point is, there are no means for us to stop someone from going in that dog run at 1 o'clock in the morning, or at 12 o'clock in the morning, or at 11 o'clock in the evening. There needs to be something. And I would love it. Let's lock it at 10 p.m. Great.
Perhaps this is a discussion for the Environmental Services Subcommittee?
I would love it. Thank you so much.
Dirk, can I just jump in with 2 points for us just to walk back and forth? Also an issue across of St. Francis on that side street on 3rd between Madison and Jefferson.
Okay.
With regards to rats as well in that area. And since the former director was like the rat czar, who's our new rat czar? I know New York City has one. Who's the new person to deal specifically with this?
We have a
Health department, so
yes.
it's Nancy.
Yeah, just-
We have a team, actually, a rodent mitigation team. But yes, it is being led by the health department, by Nancy Tarantino, our health officer, in very close coordination with our Office of Constituent Services and our sanitation inspectors. So feel free to send any rodent complaints, and certainly I will pass this along, as I have also Councilman Russo's regarding Grand Street, along to those who are working on that as well. But you can reach out to Nora directly. That's actually
Thank you. And the second point that Councilor Russo was bringing about the dogs, pickleball is now on Sundays at the boys' club at the outdoor basketball courts, and the neighbors do not mind that at all. But players are bringing their dogs as well, and they are doing a lot of barking and fighting amongst themselves while people are playing. And so the neighbors are complaining about that. Not the pickleball they're complaining about, but the dogs barking, incessantly.
Is that Boys and Girls Club property, though? Could they put up signage?
They did not put up signage, no dogs allowed yet. No, there's no signage there, so.
But
But
to
maybe
Councilman Jabor's, or Council
Boys
President
and Girls
Jabor's
Club
point,
would need
that's
to.
not the city park property
Right.
at the current moment.
So they would be the ones to have to
Okay, so
post
they
that
have to do
notice.
themselves, okay, we're not responsible.
Right,
Okay.
it's a city building, but they have a lease
They did it
over that
themselves,
space.
okay.
Yeah. And I think Councilman Fisher has one more question for you.
Specifically, just to follow up on one of the things that Councilman Russo said, the situation that we have at 1500 Garden.
Yep.
One of the observations is when the garbage is collected, there's just remnants that is just left there. Like in particular, there's like 50 avocado shells a couple times a week, but there's just always a bunch of garbage that seems to be left after it's been removed. So just to add it to a similar observation.
Sure, and I have been corresponding with, and Dave has as well, the management company
Yeah,
there. So.
great, thanks.
Thank you,
One
Director.
more for
Appreciate it.
Director.
Sorry,
It's
one
not-
more, Director.
It's not really for you, but you might as well be here.
Lucky you.
We've been emailing back and forth with Caleb about having a meeting regarding this. The last we heard was last week, but I emailed back, can we please have a meeting? Councilman DeFusco asked for a meeting. So
About
is it
what?
possible
For Health and Human Services, or-
to have a meeting to discuss the rodent problem in Hoboken? And I know it's not you, but we haven't met at all.
Sure. I can address that with Director Freeman tomorrow because I wasn't aware there was a request. I wasn't copied on that. So I'm happy to work with the chairman to schedule that. Sure.
I believe
Thank you,
Caleb
Director.
started the conversation.
Thank you.
Councilman Ramos, did you have any additional comments?
Yeah, thank you. Just to revisit a conversation earlier we were having with regards to CD2, and if $3.2 million is enough or not enough, let's just review our needs, right? Things that we need or that we've been told we need in the city. A new police headquarters, right? How much is that going to cost? Millions, right? A new fire department headquarters. How much is that going to cost? Millions. We just spent $80 million to purchase Academy's property. I'm in favor of that. Wasn't cheap. Looking for infrastructure improvements, right? Not just in that neighborhood, but throughout our city. That's millions. The light rail in 2019 was assessed at $8 million. Now in 2023, that's probably upwards above $10, $12 million, maybe, be conservative, in that range. We had a school proposal for $220 million, right? So that's millions. So let me ask the question again. Maybe I didn't reframe it the right way. Is $3.2 million enough in givebacks, right? Well, we could get bonuses for more to pay for these things. We just had a 6% plus tax increase, right? I'm not pro-development. I'm pro-bill, paying bills, right? I'm pro-math. The math needs to add up, right? That's what I'm in favor of, and trying to get as much as we can where we can. While I'm in favor of the plan tonight, but $3.2 million was not enough when we left some more on the table. I don't know what that more is, but we could have done a little bit better. We know what the limitations were there. So that's my point on that. And then hopefully, again, we had a meeting, Southwest Fest, June 3rd. We have bi-weekly meetings on that. And right now, it's coming together to be a really fun event. We have Mechanical Bull, we have water gun games, we have obstacle courses, bouncy house, video game truck, performance stage going on, food. So we have a lot of things happening that day for everyone throughout the city. We want to highlight what's happening in the neighborhood in Southwest Hoboken, and this could be a really good thing between 2nd and 3rd and Jackson. So hopefully everyone could really could join us and have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 points and a shout out. First is tomorrow we'll have our CAPS meeting at the Multi-Service Center beginning at 4:30. Reminder, it's going to be the normal or maybe abbreviated report out along with a jobs fair for police, fire, OEM, ambulance, and CERT, I think volunteer positions being advertised and so forth. So encourage everyone to come down. We're expecting a big crowd. Second, it is, as we all know, Bike Safety Month. And in Hoboken, we've been doing a lot, the police have been doing a lot for education. I've seen pop-up tents on Washington Street educating bike riders where they can and can't. Earlier today, we had the All Saints kids came and did a very excellent report out on that. With respect to e-bikes on sidewalks, I know we've issued over 100 tickets since we've started stepping up enforcement on there. It's a never-ending battle, I'm afraid. I think it's going to be one of those things, but whether through education and enforcement, hopefully we'll get to manageable levels. And then last but not least, a shout out. I think one of the things that we've been talking about today is, and to echo Councilman DeFusco's points, is a lot of hard work going on in City Hall, and I'm always impressed with the dedication, the passion, and the thoughtfulness of those who work for our city. They are not thanked nearly enough, and I want to take the time now to thank the parking utility. These folks are out there kind of at the front lines of our curb management. And often the cynical view is that, oh, they're just looking to issue tickets and raise revenue. No, they're looking to make sure that our curbs are managed appropriately, that folks can find the spots when they need them, and so forth. So today I had my car was parked in the wrong spot. I had parked it there. They put up temporary no parking signs. And I didn't know until I got the call. And I'm sure a lot of you have gotten this call, but this goes to show that we're not just looking to make a buck, we're looking to help people. The call was automated. It said, you are parked in a temporary no parking. Your car is going to be towed immediately if you do not move it. So I ran out and was able to move it. So thank you to the Hoboken Parking Utility for making that call and for being thoughtful in that respect while they're trying to help us out. Yeah.
Councilwoman? Thank you. Councilman Doyle, are you still on the green team?
Yes.
So the Nature Center at Liberty State Park, in conjunction with the USDA, had an event in Liberty State Park called Scrape the Eggs. And I feel like that's something that would be great for the green team sort of to take the lead on.
Scrape the eggs?
For the lantern flies.
Oh, okay. I wasn't, I missed
Yeah, you're
that
like, this
part
is
of it.
going,
I'm thinking
we're
of
definitely not
Easter
involved in
or
that.
Easter egg hunt. Okay.
And I have someone who participated in it. Maybe I can connect the two of you. And then just for transparency purposes, CC1 and CC2 that Ms. Waiters was asking about, it's actually all public knowledge because it's on the city website. So it was just about water main. It has nothing to do with an individual. It was about water mains back in 2020, I believe.
At 14th and Willow.
Yeah. So it's not an individual. And I believe
It's not both of them.
that is it. Councilman?
Thank you, Council President. Just a few things. Councilman DeFusco referred to sort of working together to get things done. He reminded me, I don't know, we've been at political odds for a while and how we used to work really well together as zoning board commissioners before we were council members. And maybe you saw a bit of it tonight that when Councilman Doyle was interested in not moving on something, I wanted to make sure that since it affected Councilman DeFusco's ward, that he got to speak on that. And that's how we work together on the Community Development Committee on a wide variety of issues. It really isn't, it is not about politics, it's about policy, and that is what we do. One of the things we had in our community development meeting that was interesting, and the one that Councilman Russo and I attended this week, is that we have in our fair share, we hear a lot about affordable housing. In our fair share affordable housing plan is included the lot at 11th and Willow, which 2 years ago we had a plan that was presented to us that was unacceptable to the committee, to Councilman Russo and I specifically, because it would have required, in order for the financing to be done, for the developer to take the land, basically get it for nothing from the city. And we said, basically, go back to the drawing board, come up with a new financial model whereby the city keeps the land and you develop a viable project that's 100% affordable. And they actually did. They came back to us at this last meeting, and you'll be hearing more about this as it goes forward, but it was actually a pretty impressive reworking of the entire project, and it was something that Councilman Russo and I both felt strongly about, and I think we're both happy to see that at some point in the not-too-distant future, we're going to be hearing some specifics about a 100% affordable project that's going to be built on city land where the city keeps the land. So stay tuned on that front. I know a lot of people are concerned about affordable housing, but this looks like something that is now viable and something that we can look forward to. And also, Councilman Russo mentioned the work of Andrew Sobel. There have been meetings of entire buildings, that actually Councilman Russo and I have attended at least one of them together, where Andrew Sobel spoke to 25 tenants in a building who wanted to know what is going on, what's the city doing, how can the city help them, what is an unconscionable rent increase, how do I deal with the lease, the issues similar to the ones we heard from Mr. Guzman at our last meeting. It's happening writ large across entire buildings. And these are meetings that are facilitated by City Hall, that are run by Mr. Sobel, and the mayor's chief of staff are coordinating all these calls and helping in a single call. 20, 30 tenants are being helped, and it's all over the city. These calls are happening, and when the responses from the property management companies are not fast enough or appropriate enough, the pressure and publicity is being brought to bear, and it's being done on behalf of the tenants, and it's being done in a way that I think is very effective. And when it can't be done in a group setting, then Mr. Sobel and his relatively small firm is making individual free consults available to those individuals. So I want to echo Councilman Russo's comments and thank Andrew Sobel and Sobel Hahn and his associates there for doing that work. Something that I know Councilwoman Giattino's, we've spoken about it recently, and a number of people have raised questions with me about this, is my interest in helicopter noise and Stop the Chop. That is, it is an ongoing issue. It's an ongoing problem. It is a quality of life issue. The helicopter noise is somewhat unrelenting, and it affects people's ability to enjoy the quiet privacy of their home. There is federal legislation that's out there which has not been moving very well, but there is good interest on this issue from our federal representatives. Congressman Menendez, Congressman Sears before him, has been working with congresspeople in New York. Next Wednesday, I have an event I call Coffee with Cohen, which is a live stream Facebook event. My guest is going to be the chair of the board of Stop the Chop. It's next Wednesday at noon. If you have questions, they are really an excellent grassroots organization that does nothing but address helicopter noise. That is their full-time thing. They are local people. They're looking for people in Hoboken or Jersey City who are upset by these issues to volunteer, to assist. But if you have questions about them, if you want to submit them, to have them addressed, it's going to be next Wednesday at noon. You can email me at hobokenphil@gmail.com. I'll make sure your questions are asked, and you can tune in and hear the broadcast and hear what's the latest with respect to helicopter regulations. And finally, I just want to thank again Jim Perry and congratulate him on his award for all of his service. He was a fellow zoning board commissioner with me. He served 2 terms, and he's one of these people who was always about community service. At the end of his 2 terms, he said, I'm done. It's time for new blood. He did the same thing on the Historic Preservation Committee, 2 terms. He was like, you know what? I've done this long enough. It's time for new members. It's time to move on. He became the vice chair of the American Legion, vice commander of the American Legion. And he's just going from one way of serving the community to another. He's spending he told me before the meeting tonight, he's been retired 9 years. He was a little worried. What was he going to do in retirement? And he said, the city of Hoboken is just the greatest place. My children are here. My grandchildren are here. It gets in your blood. I love this community. And no one could be more deserving of the honor of Senior of the Year than Mr. Perry. Congratulations, Jim. Thank you, Council President.
Sure. Just a few mentions of upcoming events. This weekend is the Hoboken Public School District musical. They are putting on SpongeBob the Musical, and there will be over 100 students from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade performing this weekend. They're doing performances Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, some of which are actually already sold out. I think there's a lot of families with those 100 kids who are very eager to see this show. So I wish them the best of luck to break a leg. Also, this weekend is the last weekend of Balloonacy at Mile Square Theater. I took my children last weekend. They loved it. Chris O'Connor does a one-man show, and he is, the adults were laughing as much as the kids, I would say. So it's your last chance to catch their children's production. This Sunday is also the first community bike ride of 2023. Bike Hoboken, Hoboken Police Department, and the City of Hoboken partner together to have a series of these bike rides, one per month. So this Sunday at 11 a.m. we'll be meeting at Columbus Park. It's about a 1-hour ride with water breaks along the way. So would encourage riders of all ages to join. It's a very easy, laid-back ride. So even some of our youngest bike riders can come out. And then we actually don't have another council meeting until June 7th because of May being extra long. So I also wanted to mention CASA has their annual fundraiser. It's a really big event for them. They're an organization that represents foster kids across Hudson County, but this is their big annual fundraiser, and that's happening at Botello on June 1st. And then the Taste of Hoboken is the Hoboken Community Center's large annual fundraiser, and that's happening up on the Maxwell waterfront on Tuesday, June 6th. And then just one last mention, the city is sponsoring the Spring Fling will be Saturday, June 3rd, which is a citywide cleanup. So if you haven't signed up to volunteer, I'd encourage you to go on the city website to join in that effort as well. So thank you very much. Motion to close.
Motion. Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Who's sponsoring the Southwest?